been sitting here noodling around with this painting as a way to warm up before I got on the video, and then I realized I shouldn't be doing this off camera. So I do a little bit more of it on camera. Here's the thing. One should, this is still wet. Trees looks very blue right now, but when it dries it'll be less blue, and I'll see, I'll play with it. But the thing is that a great way to warm up, find a little place on the background, or I've got another little warm-up thing that I'm going to show you sometime very soon. But let's see, I'm actually going to take a tiny bit of phthalo blue here because that's what I used in other places. And I think I better use a small brush here because I'm going to be working right around the faces here. I want to get a little more depth in here. So I've got a little tiny bit of phthalo blue. This paper's dry. And one of the nice things about the phthalos is that once it's dry, it's not going to bleed. Probably not going to bleed onto the skin. I'll stick with probably. So you can see I've kind of dotted this around in different places. And then I'll just pick up something else. And I've got this Goethite that I just love this stuff called Goethite. Most of y'all that are doing this know what the Goethite is. So I'm not going to explain it. But I love to combine it with phthalo. Just love to. The phthalo is very ink-like and bright. And the Goethite is very granulating. So you can see I'm letting these two kind of merge, but only some. So I've got a lot of places where they blended in together. You know, I really didn't intend to go quite that dark in here. Well, I have now. By the way, your round brushes protect those points. Now, by protect the points, I'm going to blot right there at the tip. There, lighten that a little bit. But by protect the points, what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about putting one of those little sleeves back on it that come in it when you buy that. You should never put that back on. But I'm just talking about you take care of the point, you protect it, you don't leave it stuck down in the water for sure. But also you just, you keep it someplace safe where it doesn't get bumped around or jammed. It should keep a good point for a long time. And that point is your friend. When you need a good point, you need a good point. And you pay for these brushes. There's no point, there's no reason in letting them get yicky. I'm just pulling a little paint up there. I'm just making a little variation in there to feel like something organic back in the back without really having to make something organic back there. You can see that I've been playing down here. Now I put that area dark there, so I have to put a little more in over here, and I'll just go ahead and do that. And this is one of those times when I really don't have to pay attention to the photo and have it turned the same way and everything. So it's just more convenient for me to work with this way. And now I'm turning my color. I'm just picking up a little color right out of the well that's soupy-ish. So if I put something on one side of a branch, I should get it on the other. You don't have to. Okay, see, and that's soupy. That's soupy enough that it's going to merge in with my Goethite. Put a little more water in that Goethite. I haven't used it in a while. You know, the longer your paint goes without being used, the more it's apt to dry on you. So I had somebody the other day who had some wells that are just flat. The paint in them was just flat cracked. So I really suggest using a little bit of glycerin, maybe in your water to rehab those paints. But the thing is, you really want to be careful when you do that, that you're not, that you don't get too much. I used to recommend that everyone just go ahead when they stirred their paints, when they put their paints in the well, to put a little bit of, a tiny, tiny little bit of glycerin in with their paints. And that's a good thing. The problem is that I had some people that, particularly one, that put all her new paints in, I mean a whole palette full, and put too much glycerin in. You know, if a little bit is good, then a lot must be better. I'm one of those people too. I do that kind of thing. But in this particular case, it's like disaster, absolute disaster. I think that, I don't know if that's too blue or not. If it's too blue, I'll put some more brown on it later. And, but just, and the thing is that glycerin is real kind of gunky. That is, it's thick. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it's real easy. You tell someone to put a drop in. Well, a drop could be a long, elongated blob that is really a lot of glycerin. So I don't say drop anymore, and I don't have a measurement. All I do is say tiny, 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 tiny. You know, it'd be nice to leave an area here maybe a little bit lighter right there. And lots of this stuff into that blue. And they kind of fight with each other in this really pretty kind of way. I mean, if you see them on just raw paper together, it's just a beautiful thing. I haven't worked with it in a while, but it's just beautiful. So, we'll just, and you could leave some twinkles. I don't know why I didn't leave twinkles over there. Because, again, twinkles, particularly when you already have a background in, I mean, twinkles just give you a feeling of something natural there. So here, you can see this is still wet, and it's, and I think I'm going to work on top of that and make that darker again when this is dry. But now it's time to go to faces, and I need to get clean water. Okay, let's work on some skin for a while. I really eventually want to build up a lot of depth back here, and as I do that and I add more leaves in, I'm also going to put a little bit of shading and shape to these leaves. You know, they look too flat for this composition. I do like the flat decorative look a lot of the time, but this is not the place for it. So we have, let's see what's showing on here. Okay. So to start off on skin, let's start off with the arm, not the face. And I have a Viva paper towel here handy. And I am going to wet down the arm. And I won't wet quite to the tips of the fingers. I know I'm going to want a little more color and shade in there anyway. So I wet almost to the edges of the arm, but not all the way. And what the best thing to do, the really smart thing to do, which isn't usually what I do, but the smart thing is to just let that set a minute. You know, just wait, twiddle your thumbs, you know, just stuff. Okay, so I'm going to, because I've waited as long as I can on camera, I squeezed my brush out, and I'll just pull up, and this is just the weight of the brush. I just pulled up a little bit of the extra water. It's still got a shine to it. Not quite as shiny as it was. This is a little bit of, I'm testing it out, a little bit of Cheap Joe's Yellow Ochre, and called American Journey, and Quinn Coral from Daniel Smith. Nobody does Quinn's like Daniel Smith, I don't think. So I'm going to put some shading here. And see, as it hits the water, I'm kind of there on the edge, but as it hits the water, we get this nice soft edge. Here I'm washing out my brush, getting the excess water off, and just giving it a little gentle, friendly, something there. Okay. Right up here on the tips of the fingers, a smart person would use a small brush, really. I'm going to pretend I'm a smart person for a few minutes. Okay. And the tips of our fingers, if we're healthy, it should look kind of pink anyway. That funny noise you hear is Sophie making a bed under my feet. Good work, Sophie. I think about like there. Later we're going to deepen some of these fingers at the knuckle where it bends. So I don't know if that's too bright or too red. I'm going to use it for shape, and then later if I think I need to, I'll come back and tone it down if I need to. But this will dry enough duller, particularly with yellow ochre in it, that I want to see it first before I decide what I'm going to do. By the way, you will remember there is this little stain here. I don't know, it might be a dead bug. Anyway, that I'm going to have to touch up at the very end. Okay, so let's put a little more water on and do the other hand. Again, see, I'm just putting water mostly down the middle of the arm. And you can see I'm not pressing very hard to lay that water down. If you press hard trying to get more water down, you actually get less because you push it out of the way. So instead, if you want water to go on liberally, you should float it on. Okay. And actually, I wet a place down that I shouldn't have. There's a place there where there's not a finger. And I've got it looking like there is one. I'll have to take care of that later. Okay. Let's see. Can you see my mix here? There is more color, or shadow I should say, and the shadow makes for a little more color. This is a very pale washed out photograph, so we're having to make up a little bit of color here. Oh, this should all have, whoops, a lot in it. Let's see. Well, now here's the thing. You can see I'm getting a hard edge there, even though I had pre-wetted. I didn't pre-wet it enough, but because it was pre-wet, it's very easy to work with and to soften that edge. Now I want some shadow on this side. Get a little of the extra water out of there, so I've just got the water out of it on the tip. Because this is a pretty little piece. Well, I'd like to see how that's going to do before I put that on her baby face. I think it'll be okay. You know, we're working with something that doesn't have strong shadows at all. And we're just going to have to try and build some stuff up here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to her face. Oh, no, I'm not, because I need a little more color down here. So here's American Journey Yellow Ochre, just the plain yellow ochre. Whoa, that's a little strong. Here's Daniel Smith's Coral. That's a little, not quite enough. This has a really soft look to it because the ochre is more or less opaque. And so that softens the color. And by softens, I mean it's not as bright as it could be. So I'll let the color go up into the hair. Certainly wish that bug wasn't there. But we can fix it. It's just that it bothers me. Just like that little spot there. That's probably bothering you right now. What is she going to do with that spot? Well, I'll get that out of there more or less. Probably. I'll show you. Maybe I'll show you. Okay. So. Just pull up a little bit of the extra. You know, I'd rather put too much water down when I'm doing something like this. I'd rather put too much water down and pull it up or wait for it to soak in than to not put enough water down. If you're going to do this technique, you need enough water down. So, basically, I'm just dropping in a little color. I think we needed these fat baby cheeks. Oh, they're pretty. Pretty baby cheeks. And there's a little piece of lint in there. It'll go away when this is dry. It matters not. The only thing that matters is if you start working at trying to get rid of it, because you can do more damage to your painting than anything else. I've seen that happen so many times. Okay, I'll go back to the larger brush, and I'm just putting more color up over the whole forehead. There's just a little more shadow up here. So you can see this nice little area right here across the bridge of the nose. Because she's so flat across there, because she's so baby-faced. I could put a little shadow right there. A little more shape right here. Okay, now there's some like fuzzy little crawly fingers in there. They just barely exist, but they're there. So what I'm going to do is fresh, clean water, and see I didn't touch the tip. But I'll come in here, and mostly this will subtract color. Because I do use these brushes to subtract color, not just to lay it down. All I want is for that to be soft enough that it doesn't look like there's little fuzzy fingers growing on her face. Past that, I want to leave it alone. So see, we've just got that subtle shape in there. Now, grandmother, I don't think it would hurt her to have a layer of subtle shape too. We did some hard-edged parts on there, and I plan to do most of her hard-edged. But let's give her a little bit more of a warm glow. I think she could use a little warm glow. So, and she's got really light spots on her glasses, and I will probably just come back with some white ink and put that in. And here I want to be careful. That should be dry before you do this. Don't do this the way I'm doing it. Get one area dry before you do another. So what I'm doing here is I'm turning my head to the side. You can't see my head, thankfully. I have no makeup on. So I'm turning my head to the side so I can see the sheen to see if there's any places I missed. And if I've got it wet enough, because it should be really shiny, very shiny. Okay, time goes by. More time, more time. Yeah, see, that's drying very, very nicely. You've just got the really soft contour because on a baby, it's just all softness. And you can really mess them up if you start making things too harsh. Okay, so the lightest parts on her are maybe right up here, maybe right under the eyes or at the top of the nose. Even the top of the lip is a little bit lighter, maybe not as much lighter as the rest of those areas. So this is pretty thin. Yeah, I guess that's going to be about right. So, and the neck should get cool, and right now I'm adding a lot of warmth in that neck. But I think that this is going to dry light enough that I can still put some cools in on top of it, which is my favorite way to work. One of these days I'm going to work with some grays on faces. Just because I've seen some beautiful work that I think has got some grays on it. It's not what I'm in the habit of doing, but it's time for some adventure. I figure at my age, if I don't get some adventure now, I never will. Okay. So when I look at this, I can see a little darkness here under the eye, which I want to see because that's going to frame the eyes. Okay. So let's, and so I've taken most of the water out of the brush. And I'm just messing with this. I think I need the tiniest bit more color in here, just barely any color at all. Whoops, that's too dark. Maybe there. And I want to soften that a little bit too. Okay. I think that's nice. Right now I can hardly see what I did underneath that had some shape in it. There, it is there though. And when it dries, it'll probably show up just a little bit more. So on her hands, Let's take a look. I think she could use a little more color, a little more warmth on her hands. So I'm just going to put a thin layer of color on there, and I'm not even going to pre-wet. You know, I started out with the skin a little bit on the yellow side, so I was afraid of making them too pink. They got to have some warmth. You don't always know what you need to do until you do something. And you can't always, well, some people probably can always pre-plan everything. I'm not one of those people. It's not the way I work, so I can't tell you how to pre-plan it. I want to see it and respond to it. And for me, that's what's fun. Now, this clothing, of course, I've done some blues in here. Golly, right now the faces seem dark. They're not going to be. Once we get some more darks in here, this is not dark at all. But it's feeling that way to me right now. I always have moments when I look at it and think, oh no, this isn't working. You'd think as much experience as I have that I wouldn't have those feelings, but I do. So I'm going to take this skin color now, and I'm thinning it way, way, way out. Way, way, way out. Because I'm going to gray this up a little bit. And I'm going to do it with this. See, I love the way the layers look, because in watercolor, things can go really dull, really fast, and layers of color are much brighter, prettier things than mixing a gray. So even as I said, I'm going to try gray and skin one of these days, and I am. There's a place for it, and this isn't a place. Of course, this isn't skin either. See, that's nice, and that's still not dark enough. So I can choose some other layer color when I get ready to. And there's no point in putting it on here exactly on top of the old blue layer. There should be some variation in that. Some places where it's bluer, some places where it's warmer, some places where maybe the warm is not on top of the blue, or the blue has no warm on it, so that I get just little tiny bits of excitement of changes in the color. And I could vary this color that I'm laying down. I'm really playing it safe and not doing that, because this is such a pale area. But it's really nice to vary your color. Maybe we will later. Maybe. Actually, I don't like that orange spot that I put down there when I was telling you what a great idea it was to put it there. Let's just take that up a little bit. And if there's a background there, good texture. Okay. See, I left some little bare blue spots there. And this crops off down here. Okay. Let's, I would like to see some more colors in those hats. By the way, I have this photo of her too that they sent me. And in this one, she obviously likes this kind of hat and wears it in all kinds of colors. I really like that blue hat. She's got such pretty full lips. would like to play that up. And then I think I want a blue hat on her. Although I've already started the underpinnings of a beige. Oh dear. I wonder what that'll look like. Well, let's try a little ultramarine on it. I don't want cerulean because cerulean's got a lot of yellow in it, and this has already got yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tiny bit of ultramarine right here. And it's not that dark yet. Here her hat is pulled further back, and you can see more of her hair on the sides. I kind of like that, but I don't know. Okay, I think the blue is going to work out just fine. So what I think I'll do is I think I'll put a layer of blue across here. And ultramarine with a yellow doesn't really make a very much of a green, which we're taking advantage of that. Because ultramarine doesn't have yellow in it to speak of. Another one that would have worked well would have been cobalt blue. I don't generally use cobalt blue in my instruction simply because I don't tell people to buy cobalt blue. See, this is going to have some shadows on it. Right now it looks like she's got blue hair. Remember all those people in Luby's cafeteria with the blue hair? Yeah. Okay. I'm glad that phase is past. Yeah, I could see her in Luby's right now. Don't fall asleep. See, that was just a thin wash on dry paper. Yeah, see, she's going to have a pronounced shadow, and she doesn't have hair here yet, which is really distorting the look right now. But it's really nice to have that. I think I'm going to put a little more that stronger color in here. Color-wise, it really pleases me to have this blue. I'm so glad I have this photo of her because it not only tells me more about her face, but also just what she might or might not wear. She is, by the way, you can see this very plain white top, and it has a very crisp, ironed looking, looks like she irons her clothes. She is a Buddhist monk. She's a grandmother, but then she became a Buddhist monk. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, see, that needs like little ridges in it and all kinds of things. Now there is a little, I don't know if that's a mark or a piece of fluff there. I believe that's a pencil mark. Yeah, okay. This is still even wet over here. Well, I tell you what. Let's see, what do I have here? I need to take a break and think. Here's a little lifting brush. I'm going to take that spot out or most of the way out, maybe. I'm just very gentle with that. Okay, that's most of the way out, and most of the way is good for me. Okay, I dried these faces. And we need some We need some detail in here, and we need to deepen some of the detail in here. And I don't build this up all at once. I play it pretty safe here. So let's see. I've got some pretty strong, it's pretty concentrated Quin Coral there. And I want to put something in here that will, oops, here. I want to put something in here. Does it show? Yeah. I want to put something in here to make a dark. And I want something that's not going to bleed later. And so one thing that's not going to bleed later would be if I used Prussian blue. Because Prussian blue is actually made with phthalo. And so I'll get a purple of some sort. Now I need a yellow that's not going to bleed. And although Quin Gold is dark, and it's really my favorite to use in places like this, the fact is that I could also use New Gamboge, just because I've noticed that, despite what Daniel Smith says, I've noticed New Gamboge doesn't like to come up much. So you can see we've got a, well, that still looks a little purple, doesn't it? What do we need there? I think we need more yellow, of course, to get rid of the purple. Ooh, that's a lot of yellow. So then that's brown. Maybe that's a little too brown, which would mean that we need more blue. And that'll gray the brown down a little bit. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Well, that's like totally gray. I don't want totally gray. Well, look what I've got here. I've got some pinky brown. If this doesn't flow too much, I've got some pinky brown. I've got some brown, and I've got some gray brown. Although I think this is all going to run together. Maybe I could pull some of that grayish tone over here. I'll mix with that a little bit. That'll be okay. Yeah. It's still kind of a mauve-y brown. I think that'll work for me. I have here, oops, let me move this all over. Okay. I have here, this is that Blue Cornell 7020 something ultra round. Anyway, this is the little pointy brush that I like. This is pretty cheap, and it's synthetic. It's treated a little bit some way. It's not. It has some absorbency. Anyway, I find it pretty useful for this kind of thing, and I have students that absolutely love it, so I use it. Okay. Let's see. Well, I didn't load it up enough. You still gotta load the brush up. Now, at the same time, if it's too drippy and I want a real fine detail, that's not good. So I'm just going to rake it like that, and that's enough. Okay, let's see. There we go. In fact, that's still pretty wet. Let's take a little extra off of here. Make sure my glasses are sitting on my nose right so I can see what I'm doing. You know, if you can't find your glasses, don't go ahead and paint anyway. Find your glasses first. If you're working on a face, you need your glasses. Okay, a little bit more color. So, okay. So I'm going to take that color and I'm going to pull it out this way. Okay, this is kind of hard to do. Now I'm picking up some of the reddish, brownish stuff. See, it looks like that. Yeah. And I'm going to shade the inside of the mouth. She's got that little spot that's bigger right there at the corner of the mouth. I don't think I'll extend that line all the way through yet. And this is a good time to do the inside of the nostrils with this reddish tone. The inside of the nostrils are not brown, they're reddish. And then they're dark. Okay. So, gee, this is tiny work here. Now I think I'll take a little more of the color off. And let's go back up here to the eyes. And this is a little bit more of the reddish tone. I don't think that you can really see the difference. And I didn't get enough lash there. Now there's a little bit of eyelid showing there. She doesn't have big lids, but you can see a little bit of eyelid. Mostly to the outside part of her eye, not the inner part. Like that. Okay, that's a nice little start on that. So let's also give her some eyebrow. And I had some pencil down here. I can just barely see it. The major thing I want to do is keep this eyebrow really soft. And I'm doing it by doing a bunch of little strokes. All those individual hairs look just too coarse, though. Let's add a little bit of water. Maybe a blot. That looks a little too reddish, too. Oh, that's much too reddish. Okay, well, what I'm going to have to do is make the other one match, and then I'll come back and alter the color. And the thing is, right here, I got that way too strong. As she comes in this way, her brow gets very pale, very weak, not like an adult brow. So I was giving her a little too much brow. Okay, see, that blot is a good idea. I think I'll blot over here too. Okay. I don't like what's happened here because it looks too dark right in this spot, which makes her, the iris of her eye look too big. Boy, that's tiny. This is difficult. Okay. I'm gonna gently lift again. Oh yeah, there it is back. I think that'll work. I'm gonna look at it on camera. I think it'll be okay. I think the nostrils got a little too big and a little too dark. I'm just going to wet them down and give them a really gentle little brushing here. Yeah, there. That's much better. Now let's take some queen coral, just plain queen coral. There, I've got just a tiny bit of queen coral there. And I think my water is still clean enough I can get away with it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and add some water. Actually, I could do this with a smaller brush. I'm going to add some water on either side of the nose, right here. Okay, right there. Oh, that's strange looking, isn't it? Okay, let's squeeze this out and let's just pull a whole lot of it up like that. And like this. Do a little more of that. And see, we've got that soft baby color, and you can see the curve. So you're beginning to sense the fullness in the cheeks from that little spot right there. Now we're going to do the same thing at the mouth. And all we're going to do is make just a little bit of a bulge there. So I'm putting water here, all along here. Like that. And you know, I could pull up a little bit of the extra, and then a tiny bit of the color right on here. Now, I don't want her to look like she's wearing lipstick, and that does. That's overdone. So let's get rid of a little of that. Ooh, I'm not getting rid of it. Coral comes up pretty easily. There. Okay, now all I want to do, I squeeze this brush out, and I'm just going to feather out that little shape. Because again, that's where the mouth goes in, and it's redder there anyway. And then that gives you that sense of that fullness in the cheeks. Let's give her a little more color across here. Well, we need some on the nose. And you want to be sure you got that nose dry before you do this. So don't do it the way I'm doing it. I think I've already got a little bit of color still in my brush. Oh, look at that. That's almost perfect. I'm going to put just a touch more in here, right? Nope, I didn't pick any up. Right down here at the base of the nose. And a little bit down that way. Oh, isn't that a pretty baby? So let's give her a little bit of color. We'll just use the red for now. This may be a little too colorful. And this will have to be muted because this isn't near as red as in her nose and her cheeks. But right there. And then I'm going to add a little water on either side. So see, I haven't even put any color on the bottom lip yet. But what I've done is I've made a shadow under there, which will have to cool down later. Oh, she's sweet baby, sweet, sweet baby. Okay. So let's come across here. And I'm just going to continue using this little brush. This is working well for me. So this isn't the real pointy one. This is a black velvet. Just a little bit of shadow there under the eye. If you have problems with this, you can text me. Send me pictures of what you're doing. Or not, just whatever you want. Just putting a little something under there to start indicating a little bit of a pouch under the eye. Okay. So she's starting to look like a little baby. Let's take some of this color. You know, it's got a little brown and pink. It's a brownish pink. That's what it is. Let's just look at these fingers a minute. I want to get a really strong little tiny shadow right there. I don't want to get it too dark, but I think this is going to work. You see I'm making a little bigger blob right there at the base. And then I'm going to take my brush with just a tiny bit of water on the tip only. And I'm going to add water at that little blob and kind of bleed it out so it's not quite as strong, and so there's a little bit of shadow around it. There. And we'll take a little more of that. I'll just do this finger. There's a little bit of, that's mostly pink. It's got a little brown in it. So the thing is, that's too harsh. So what we got to do now is come in and pull up some color, and maybe pull a little color over the knuckle, but not too much. See, that's going to bend the knuckle. You know what? I've got a big mistake right here. I can see my line, and what happened was when I painted the background, I didn't paint all the way down, so I've got a lump on this finger. Unfortunately, the finger's wet, so I can't work on it right now, but I'm going to have to come back and cover that up because her finger's misshapen. I knew there was something there that just wasn't adding up. And right here, again, a little bit. So we put a little bit of shadow there. These are tiny, tiny areas, and I'm working them pretty pale, but they make a lot of difference. See, so I can barely soften that. You just have to have kind of a light touch. Be a little bit thoughtful about it. I really don't have the finger drawn the right shape here, but it's going to work. And what is that? Oh, no, that's just, okay. Tiny bit on the tip of this one. Okay. That's enough there. Okay, let's do these fingers and then we're going to stop for the day. So, same thing, kind of the brownie pink. Now, that doesn't mean I would use a brownie pink in something larger. I'm doing what I can work with at this size. Oh yeah, and here's an area I gotta fix yet. Because you can actually only see 3 fingers here. And there's a little bit of her clothing that's lumped up behind the finger, but I don't have it here. But again, I need to trim that finger down a little bit when I trim this other finger down with the background. And then I have to do something with that area where I painted color in where it doesn't belong. Okay, because there's just 3 fingers showing here. The other fingers, you know, in her clothing or behind her clothing. Her index finger. Here's the thing. That looks too clunky, too prominent. Now, part of it is because this needs trimming, but I think that this is a little too strong. In fact, I know it is. Let's see if we can pull a little of that up while it's still fresh. I'm okay with this one. That's just a little too outliney dark. In fact, it's way too dark. Let's just give it a little bit of a bath with this 1/2-inch brush. I took a lot off, but not all of it. You know, part of it's just the tracing showing through there. That's better. When I get more shadows back in here, that'll look better too. That could be a little too dark. I'll have to think about it. We'll know next time. Okay. Yeah, let's stop right here. There. So, and I need to, I'll send this out as a text too.